What's up, guys? Welcome to my channel. Today, I'm going to be building a stacked undercard for the Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler card. It's International Fight Week, so they have to put out a stacked card for this one. I mean, they don't have to. It is Conor McGregor. It's going to sell on his own. But why not just give it a good undercard? Because June, it's going to be a crazy month. We got two pay-per-views and the Saudi Arabia card, which is almost as good as a pay-per-view. It's honestly better than UFC 301. So I say let's just make it one of the best months in combat sports that we've had in years, and then just make this card stacked, just to make it an amazing month. So let's get started. Obviously, the main event, Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler. I mean, it's been announced as a main event. It is a main event. It's going to be a big fight. It's going to bring a lot of hype, and yeah, it's self-explanatory. Moving on, I think the co-main event should be Colby Covington versus Ian Garry. The storylines there, they've been talking shit to each other already. You got the up-and-coming prospect who's got a lot of hate around him versus Colby, who's been around for a while. They both are like some of the most hated fighters in the UFC right now. And the build up to this fight is gonna be hilarious. I think Colby Covington's gonna make fun of him for his whole fucking wife situation, and it's gonna be funny. It's gonna be a very funny build up. It's gonna be a very entertaining build up, and the fight itself makes sense ranking wise. I mean, Colby Covington should fight someone a little bit back in the rankings because of his last performance, and Ian Garry, he should get a bit of a fight up in the rankings because he's coming off some good wins and he's undefeated. And he's undefeated in the UFC, and he's had some good performances. So the fight makes sense for the division. The build-up's going to be great. They've already started talking shit to each other, and this is going to be a very, very, very big fight. I think it's going to add a lot of hype to the card, and especially for the press conference, man. Having Colby versus Ian Garry on the same press conference as McGregor talking shit too, that's going to be a super entertaining press conference. So yeah, I think this is a perfect co-main event. 5 rounds. Because, I don't think that. I think that making it a 3-round fight is kind of setting up Colby for failure. That's what I think. So you make it 5 rounds so we could see how Ian Garry does in the later rounds against Colby if it gets there. And yeah, this is a perfect co-main event. Moving on, Jamal Hill versus Khalil Roundtree. So yeah, Jamal Hill, this fight has already been set up. It's already been scheduled for this card. So I mean, I'm not gonna change it because this is I want to be somewhat realistic. I want to like make this card that could actually happen. And yeah, I think that Jamal Hill should be fighting Yuri. I think that's a fight that makes sense. But this is a good fight in itself. It's already on the card, and I think it's probably going to end up being the feature fight, rightfully so. It's a former light heavyweight champion. Jamal Hill was, before the Alex Pereira fight, he was coming off his championship win where he won the belt. So yeah, he's a high-ranked fighter, light heavyweight division, super entertaining fight, intriguing fight. Because I mean, Jamal Hill coming back like 2 months from this knockout, it's very dangerous, and Khalil Roundtree has a lot of power. That's what makes it intriguing. But Jamal Hill should win this fight on paper, but it's going to be a very entertaining fight, high-ranked fight, high stakes at the light heavyweight division, and yeah, this is a good feature fight for the card. Corey Sandhagen versus Umar. This fight makes, I mean, they've already talked about it. It was already scheduled to happen. And then when Umar pulled out, Corey got a win against Rob Font. Since then, Umar got scheduled against some newcomer. He beat him. And they've been talking about the fight. Corey Sandhagen agreed. He said he wanted the fight on International Fight Week. This is going to be a huge International Fight Week card, so I say put it on this card. It would be a great. This could be the feature fight too. If you want to put this above Jamal Hill versus Khalil Roundtree, I won't be bothered. You got this guy's like he's related. Umar's actually related to Habib, so he has a lot of hype. He's a decent striker, great grappler. Corey Sandhagen's been working on his grappling too recently, so this is a very intriguing fight. It kind of reminds me of Hamzat versus Gilbert Burns. You got like the guy in the bottom of the rankings, undefeated prospect, tons of hype, taking on the solidified contender that's been around for a while and has beaten a ton of good guys. It gives me that same type of feeling, but in the lower weight class. And this fight would definitely bring a lot of hype. It's a great addition to the card. So moving on, the opening fight for the main card, Brian Ortega versus Moscow Revlovic. So when it comes to the featherweight division, how I would book it is I would do Max Holloway versus Ilya Topuria, Volk versus Aljo, which wouldn't be on this card because Aljo just fought, and they need more time, or Volk needs more time to recover from that knockout loss. We can't have him just fighting every couple months getting knocked out. And yeah, so this fight, it's a perfect featherweight fight, a possible #1 contender fight. This just makes sense. You put the two grapplers against each other. Winner of this, depending on what happens with Max Holloway and Ilya and Volk and Aljo, could get a title shot. They definitely are in line, or they could whatever it is. I think it just makes sense ranking wise. I think it would be a good fight. It would be entertaining to see how they do on the ground with each other, and it's a good test for Moscar because he really struggled in that Arnold Allen fight. and I would like to see how he does with someone who has a submission threat like Ryan Ortega. I'd like to see how this fight plays out on the feet. I honestly would favor Moscar in the feet, man, but I think it would be a very entertaining, or would it? I don't know if it'd be an entertaining fight, but I think the fight makes sense, and it would be a good test for Moscar, and it would be a good way for Brian Ortega to prove himself, beating an up and coming undefeated fighter. So moving on to the prelims, I would put Joaquin Buckley versus Jeff Neal as a headliner for the prelims. This would be a super entertaining fight. Rankings wise, it makes sense. Two heavy hitters, two guys that are going to trade. They're going to throw big shots. And if Joaquin Buckley wins this, man, he really is solidifying himself as a contender in the division. And if Buckley wins, he can break that losing streak. And then we can maybe give him a fight against someone like Gilbert Burns, Sean Brady, a fight like that. But yeah, I think this fight makes a lot of sense. It would be a super entertaining fight, and it would be a great way to end off the prelims with a banger. Because I think this fight definitely would end in a knockout. Two heavy-handed brawlers that are gonna bring it. You know they're both gonna bring it, and you know they're both gonna try and take each other's heads off. And this is a possible fight of the year contender, honestly. All right, so moving on, next fight, Rob Font versus Dominic Cruz. So yeah, I think Dominic Cruz, a perfect return for him would be International Fight Week, and I saw he didn't. I think he denied a Jose Aldo fight, and they probably offered the Cody Garbrandt fight for him on UFC 300. I don't know why he would deny those fights. I saw a YouTube video. I forget the person who made it. I forget what channel it was on, but they said something about Dominic Cruz like wanting to fight someone higher ranked. So I guess he wants to try and get himself to a title shot. I saw that Figueiredo called him out. But we don't want to see Figueiredo fight Dominic Cruz. That fight makes no sense. We want to see. I think Figueiredo should fight someone like Peter Yan or Chito Vera. He should fight someone up the rankings. I mean, you don't get a title shot off of beating fucking Dominic Cruz. I don't think so. Or Dominic Cruz right now. Because what is he ranked like? Number 11, number 12. He's lower in the rankings right now, and he wants a bit of a fight up. And if we're going to give him a fight up, obviously, as I just said, it shouldn't be someone like Figueiredo. It should be someone coming off a couple losses, but we still know they're a good fighter, and it's a fight that would make sense and like could be competitive, and we don't know who would win. And I think Rob Font versus Dominic Cruz is a perfect fight to make right now. Rob Font coming off those losses to Figueiredo and Corey Sandhagen. He's starting to go down the rankings, and Dominic Cruz wants a fight up. Rob Font is still above him. So yeah, I say make this fight. It's a competitive fight. It makes sense. It makes sense for the division, and it's a good fight for if Dominic Cruz wins this, he can get back on track, and then he could fight someone like Figueiredo. If he gets past Rob Font, then I would be all for him fighting Figueiredo or Song Yadong, one of those guys, someone in that range, or maybe even like a Peter Yan. I wouldn't have a problem as long as he gets past someone like Rob Font. But I don't think right now, coming off a knockout loss to Chito Vera, he should be fighting like Davison Figueiredo or Peter Yan, any of those guys. I think right now he should fight Rob Font. That's a competitive fight. That's a good fight. Moving down the card, I want to see Kevin Holland versus Li Jingling. We haven't seen anything about Li Jingling in like what since he was scheduled to fight Michael Chiesa in April, and his last fight was against D-Rod where he got robbed. Or I didn't even watch the fight, I just heard he got robbed, right? So then you put him against, I think him versus Kevin Holland makes a lot of sense. Kevin Holland, he's moving down the rankings. He's coming off some losses against JDM, Michael Venom Page, but they're not the worst losses, they're by decision. And he lost to Michael Venom Page, who's an amazing striker. Yeah, so he lost to Michael Venom Page and JDM's a very good striker who just beat Gilbert Burns, and that was a very controversial fight. And yeah, so I think this fight makes a lot of sense. Two heavy-handed hitters, two strikers. I think Li Jingling deserves a fight in the rankings, and I think this fight would be entertaining. It would be a very, very entertaining fight. So yeah, I say run this fight next. Put it on International Fight Week, stick it on the prelims, and it would just be a good fight. It would be super entertaining. I think both of these guys would put on a show, and yeah, it would be a war. I think I could see this fight being like one of those like back and forth close fights because they both have a lot of power, and I think they'll both make it very entertaining. Moving down the card, this would probably be the last fight on the normal prelims before the early prelims. Mario Batista versus Chris Gutierrez. I wanted to put Mario Batista on this card because he's starting to make a name for himself after he beat Ricky Simone and he beat somebody else, I forget. He beat some other dude, right? And he's starting to make a name for himself. But if I look at the division, I don't know who makes sense for him. I mean, you could say Kyler Phillips, but I think Kyler Phillips should fight Song Yadong sometime in the future. So yeah, just give him Chris Gutierrez. Chris Gutierrez did decent against Song Yadong. It was competitive at points when Chris Gutierrez kind of wanted to make it. Like I don't know what he was doing in that fight, but I think he has a lot of potential and he'd be a good test for Mario Batusta. And if Mario Batusta is able to run past him, destroy him, that would be a big statement. So yeah, give him a chance against Chris Gutierrez and give Gutierrez a chance to get back into the rankings. If he wins this one, he's back in the conversation to fight. I don't know, maybe someone like Kyler Phillips or maybe someone like if Dominic Cruz isn't fighting on this card, maybe if he wins this fight, he could fight Dominic Cruz. So yeah, I think this fight makes a lot of sense for both guys. A good chance for Mario Batista to showcase his skills, and a good chance for Chris Gutierrez to get back into the rankings. So moving down to this would probably be the early prelims. This fight was already announced. Joe Pyfer versus Marc-Andre Barriault. Yeah, so they already made the fight. I think it should be a solid fight. And it's a good fight to get Joe Pyfer back on track against a decent opponent. Mark Barriault, he had a close fight with Chris Curtis, who just had a close fight with Brendan Allen, who's a top contender. So Marc-Andre Barriault, he's no joke. He's a decent opponent. He's a solid opponent. And if Joe Pyfer is able to get past him, he puts himself back in the conversation to get another ranked fight. So I think for the division, this fight makes sense. It was already made. It was already announced. Keep it on the card. Have it be the last fight on the early prelims. And yeah, it's a good fight to get Joe Pyfer back on track against a tough opponent, and it's a good fight for Marc-Andre Barriault to prove that he's up there. To prove that he's a lot more than his loss to Chris Curtis, and even in that fight, he did decent. So yeah, I think this is a solid fight, and I'm excited to see it happen. All right, so these are the last three fights on the card. They're already made. I can't do anything about it, and they all kind of suck. We have this guy. I don't know. I don't even know who any of these people are. So yeah. You got these three shitty fights that are already on the card. So yeah, I mean, I can't really do much about it. I mean, if you know these guys, props to you. But if you know these girls or guys or whatever these last three fights are, you got this guy who's fucking, the fuck is he, a ghost? But yeah. So yeah, if you know any of these guys and you're excited, good for you. But me personally, I don't give a fuck. I'll probably just start watching at Joe Pyfer. So yeah, that's why I put these posters, because I don't really care about these fights, so they're not worth me like fucking getting the things and putting them next to each other. I'd rather just put a poster for these irrelevant fights. No disrespect to the fighters. These are all probably decent fighters. I mean, they're on International Fight Week. They're given their chance to shine. So they're all probably decent fighters, but I personally just don't care. But they're already on the card, so there's not much I can do about it. But anyways, like, comment, subscribe. Um, Let me know what you guys think about this card in the comments below. Let me know what cards you guys would make. Let me know what changes you would make. And peace out.